Welcome to the Pancake King, Life and Marriage on the Spectrum. I'm bringing something a little bit different this time. I'm digging up an old series that my wife Kay and I did a little over a year ago, where we reviewed the Korean drama Extraordinary Attorney Woo, a show where the main character happened to be on the autism spectrum, and the show has a lot to say about autism itself, so we thought it'd be fun to watch the show and review each episode. And so that was actually kind of a special series on my Substack at the pancakeking.substack.com, where it was basically pay to listen to for special subscribers. I am now actually going to start slowly bringing those episodes out on YouTube for you guys to finally listen to. And today will be episode 1, where we reviewed the first episode of season 1 of Extraordinary Attorney Woo. And this show was audio only. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hope you enjoy it. Hello, and welcome to a special bonus episode of the podcast, The Pancake King, Life and Marriage on the Spectrum. I am your host, Forrest, and with me is my wife, KG.
Sup?
If you are listening to this, that means you are a paid subscriber on my Substack, in which case, thank you very much for being a paid subscriber. It is because of you that I am making this content in the first place, and it is because you are contributing to what I'm doing that you get to listen to this. So it was actually KG who came up with this idea, but we just started watching a K-drama, which if you've listened to us in the other regular episodes, we've mentioned K-dramas every now and then, so it probably shouldn't surprise you that we're watching another one. And this one is about a K-drama called Extraordinary Attorney Woo. We are going to be reviewing each episode as we watch them. And there are 16 episodes in total, which means, paid subscribers, that you will be getting 16 weeks of bonus content total out of this.
Woot woot. So tell your friends if they want bonus content and want to hear us talk about this show.
Right. So again, we are watching through this show right now, watching at least one episode a week, because KG doesn't binge. I do. I watched an entire K-drama just recently called The Glory. It probably took me like 5 days, if that. All 16 episodes.
All 16 over 1 hour long episodes.
Uh-huh. So, with that being the case, KG, why don't you give the listeners a summary of what this show's about, the characters real quick, and then give us the plot for the first episode.
So, this show is about an attorney named Woo Young-woo, and she is on the autism spectrum. In fact, according to the show, she is the very first lawyer who's on the autism spectrum.
And what of the other characters in the show? Like, why don't we introduce them real quick,
okay, yeah.
So that when you give us a summary of the plot for the first episode, people will be able to follow along.
Yeah, well, as I stated, the main character is Woo Young-woo. She's on the autism spectrum, and we have learned a couple of her hyperfixations already.
Law and whales.
A weird combination, but yeah.
Yeah, that's those are her hyperfixations. She has she knows all sorts of like random whale facts. Some of which are even just weird.
I mean, when you hyperfixate, then nothing is weird.
Yeah, and she will. What's kind of interesting in this show, though, is that she will take those whale facts and she will tie them into the investigations throughout the show.
Sometimes,
somehow,
yeah. At least at least the first episode she did.
So that in that case, her hyperfixation is useful for her job,
and also the fact that she's hyperfixated on law, so that's also extremely important to her job.
Where she has like very thoroughly memorized
everything.
Different law books that her father happened to have. Let's talk a little bit about her father.
Let me pull up his name. Is
what's his name? What's his name?
His name is Woo Guan-ho.
Yeah, so he is a single father raising Woo. As far as where the mother comes from, we don't know. At least so far in our viewing, we know nothing.
Yep, we just know that she's a single father. He seems to have been a lawyer in his past, hence why he had those law books. Mm-hmm. But right now, he runs a small diner that serves Korean food, obviously.
And he's basically just trying to do what he can to get by and support, his daughter. And he is obviously, he cares a lot about making sure that she gets the kinds of accommodations that she needs as one on the autism spectrum. He takes that aspect of her very seriously.
Right. And he also tries to help her, like, be more open, be able to talk to people better. Tries to help her, assimilate into society better, which is kind of hard because if you don't know, Korea is not really good when it comes to mental health.
I'm a little surprised. I'm honestly just a little bit surprised that this show was made at all.
I know, but again, TV in Korea is what's used to help progress things. Mm-hmm. It helps get these ideas out to people. Like, hey, autistic people exist.
Right. So you want to kind of, before we get too deep into Woo herself, you want to go over some of the other characters real quick. There's not much to say about the others, just that they're kind of there.
Well, the main male lead, because if Woo is the main female lead, the main male lead is named Lee Jun-ho. He's kind of like an investigator who works at the law firm. He helps investigate stuff for their cases.
And I mean, you can kind of like summarize the rest of them. They're all coworkers.
Yeah, I know, but we got to get the names out because they mention them in here.
Okay.
There's also Jung Myung-suk. He's a senior attorney at the law firm where Woo works at, and he's also her mentor.
Right.
He takes her under his wing, helps her like be able to work around her autism as she works her cases. Mm-hmm. There's also Choi Soo-yeon, who used to go to law school with Woo and is kind of jealous of her because Woo was able to excel so much in school. Yeah,
there's definitely more to say about that, but go on.
Yeah. And then the other main character is Kwon Min-woo, who's another lawyer at the firm and tends to work a lot with the other lawyers mentioned.
Okay.
And that's really the only ones that are important right now.
Okay, then why don't you give us the plot, and we'll kind of like go through the episode and our thoughts.
Okay. In 2000, Woo Young-woo is a seemingly nonverbal child on the autism spectrum. When her father, Woon Gwan-ho, is attacked by a neighbor's jealous husband, she finally speaks, citing definitions of assault memorized from her father's legal library. 22 years later, Woo Young-woo has graduated from Seoul National University at the top of her class and begins her first day at the Hambada law firm. Senior attorney Jung Myun-suk does not want the awkward newcomer on his team, but CEO Han So-young agrees that he can dismiss Young-woo if she mishandles her first case, defending her childhood neighbor charged with attempting to murder her husband. Though a plea bargain for attempted murder has been set, Young-woo realizes this would invalidate the defendant's pension and leave her homeless. The short-tempered husband dies after cross-examination from Young-woo. Don't worry, there was no, correlation between that. Who extracts testimony from a medical expert that he could have suffered from an underlying subdermal hematoma. The charge is reduced to assault, and the defendant receives probation with her pension and home intact. Young-woo is aided in her new job by her colleague, Lin Ju-ho, navigating everyday obstacles like their office building's revolving door.
Is that literally just stuck at the very end?
Yes.
That's hilarious. Mm-hmm. I love how that's stuck at the very end because really it's kind of like, it's a weird subplot, kind of a weird way to bring those two characters together. And I remember you mentioning after we watched the episode that to you was one of the parts of Woo's character that you felt was a bit exaggerated.
Just a little bit, but maybe it's just because I think she would be classified under a different level of the spectrum than we're on.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
I'd classify her as high mid functioning because she's obviously she's obviously mentally aware enough to take care of herself. She can go to work, she knows how to take care of herself, but she's obviously not able to fully assimilate into society. And again, I don't know if that's because she wasn't able to get the proper therapy that's available here in America, or since she really just had her father to help her through it.
Right. If reading out loud the summary wasn't enough of an indication, we are going into full spoilers for each of these episodes. We do recommend the show, at least so far in what we've watched, because we've watched the first 2 episodes at this point, because we forgot to record the first episode last week. But the point is, it will be full spoilers every episode because I feel like that would be the only way to really delve into how this show tackles autism and Wu as a character. So if you want to watch this show and follow along, and I will probably have to staple this at the very beginning of the episode instead of doing it now, but if you guys want to follow along this show and then come back and listen to our reviews, do so. I would highly recommend it.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. So yeah, definitely. So anyway, going back to the whole revolving door thing, to provide context, she's basically afraid of it almost. She's
like she doesn't understand what it is.
Yeah,
or how it works.
But it's the only way that she can get into this building is this revolving door.
Well, until later when it's revealed that because at the beginning the door was broken, they were working on it. By the end, the door was fixed.
And it was fixed, but she would still go through the revolving door. And how? What's the guy? The Junho. The way that Junho is able to help Wu get through the revolving door without being scared is basically turn it into a dance almost.
Yeah, give it a rhythm to it.
Yeah, give it a rhythm.
I think she was just afraid of. In her mind, it was just too unpredictable the way the revolving door went.
Yeah.
But Junho basically was able to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 as the door was passing by.
Mm-hmm. And what there's stuff about him in the second episode I really want to get into, but I'm gonna have to hold off until we record that episode. I absolutely adore this character, and Junho, and I can at least mention this because it's not too specific to the second episode, but they could have made him this character who is almost just as socially awkward and quirky and weird, like Wu is, without even being on the autism spectrum. And because that's kind of the stereotype, right? Mm-hmm. That you pair with a character like Wu. They don't do that here. He's not only is he kind of an average guy, but he fits in so well with everyone else that they ask him, why do you even spend time with Wu?
Yeah.
Because he is that normal, and they recognize that. And
not only that, it's that he's not just average, he's he gets attention from all the female workers at the law firm.
Yeah,
he has a whole desk drawer full of gifts from them.
Yeah.
He just kind of tosses in there without a second thought. So it shows that he's not none of the
ladies at work like him.
But he doesn't really like the ladies.
Yeah. We'll get a little more into that in the second episode. But again, I love the fact that he was written this way. Yeah. He's very, very.
You can tell that he doesn't fully understand what's wrong with her, but he's willing to work with her.
Yes, I would say even to a point where it kind of backfires on him a couple of times. Again,
but that's second episode.
Yeah, that's second episode. There's a lot of stuff in the second episode, so I better put that aside.
Focus.
Yeah, focus.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Again, considering how we've mentioned that South Korea isn't good with mental health, it's obvious that young Wu was not able to get the proper therapy that we have here in America when it comes to autism. Mm-hmm. But how would you compare a show like Extraordinary Attorney Wu, made in Korea, versus a show that's about an autistic character in America, where we've known about it, where we have procedures that help people with it, and it's a mainstream, everyday known fact.
Yeah.
How would you compare the two, and would you say one is better than the other?
So I touched on this in one of the regular episodes about how our pop culture represents characters on the autism spectrum. And, I've always said that it's more important to me that I get to see characters that are good heroes. I don't need them to be autistic in order to be a hero to me. So there's the main character. I think his name was Sam in Atypical.
Okay.
And
I've never seen that show, so
yeah. So the actor himself is not autistic. I'm assuming that Wu's actress is not autistic.
Probably not.
But the show, Atypical, is almost all about the fact that the main character is autistic. And
so this is a good comparison.
Yeah, I would say so. I just always felt like it was a bit exaggerated. I gave up after the second season. I think there were 4, and then it ended. I gave up after the second season because there were a few things they got right, but a lot of it just felt exaggerated. Like, take the whole revolving door scenario and just make that the whole show.
Like he was like, what's a good example that you can think of that you can remember?
A lot of the times it's how they deal. It's how it's actually has to do a lot with the performance.
Okay.
It's a very over the top. It's very exaggerated. There's no subtlety. There's no nuance. There's a lot of little things about, or there are certain things that like the main character would understand really well without having to, have it explained to him too much. And then there are other things where it's like equally they should be on the same level, but he doesn't get it at all.
You can't think of any like good examples for the viewers?
It's been too long, since I watched it. I remember not being very impressed. I like there wasn't a whole lot of subtlety in the performance. It was all up in your face.
Was he
over the top?
Was he always loud or something like that?
Yeah, like always at a certain volume, always always obsessed with like the one thing when usually there's at least two or three.
Yeah, at least two or three. Yeah, like with Wu, she has two.
It's like a person who's on the autism spectrum, if they have a hyperfixation on penguins, they're like he did, there's going to be another thing.
Yeah,
there's
but they
always
never really delved into that.
No, not really, no. It's just like, yeah, we'll give him one single hyperfixation, we'll give him one expression, we'll give him one quirk or whatever.
So they didn't really, there was no nuance. There was no like exploring more. They just did the bare minimum.
It felt more like a checklist. I can say, this is kind of something that we saw throughout the first two episodes, like a little subtlety in Wu's performance and something that you yourself have done, where sometimes Wu will be she'll have like this subtle smile, like she'll just have this subtle smile on her face where it's as if that's just her natural state. Sure. You know what I mean? Where it's like no matter the context, no matter the situation, she can't smile, or she can smile. Like that's all she does.
Stop smiling.
She can't stop smiling. Thank you. Or the little subtleties in where like if someone reaches to touch her, she pulls away.
Yeah.
Like and the show doesn't really draw attention to that very much. It just it just happens every now and then. It just happens, and it felt she just feels like a much more fleshed out person on the spectrum.
Yeah. She also does. Did the person atypical not look people in the eye?
Actually, I don't think that was a problem for him.
Huh? Because it's definitely a problem that they address here with Wu, because she can't look at people in the eye.
She can barely look people in the eye. She repeats what people say. She takes rules very seriously.
She has to have things explained, like no, when her father tells her, no, you can't talk about whales at work. But she's like, but what if it's extremely important for the...
What if it's necessary for the job?
What if a situation comes up where it's absolutely necessary for me to talk about whale facts? And he's just like, okay, yeah, that's fine.
But
and then she's like, and she's like, okay, got it.
Yeah. She gets overjoyed when exceptions to the rules are made, like when Junho, thank you. Junho. Okay, that's easy to say now. Yeah. Junho says, what if it's just the two of us talking? I don't see why you can't talk about whales. Her face,
I know, just big eyes. Shocked expression, oh my gosh, someone understands.
Well, it also shatters her perspective on how to approach that kind of topic in that setting.
Yeah.
So now someone is giving an exception to the rule.
She's never experienced someone saying, yes, I will listen to you talk about whales.
I don't really think she was excited as much as she was just overwhelmed.
Probably.
Overwhelmed by the fact that, okay, this is not the same as what I was told before. This is not the same rule that was established before.
Yeah, she never thought about if it's just two people talking about whales.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it also ties into the fact that autistic people love to be listened to about their hyperfixations.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he was offering that to her made her maybe not excited, but just I guess overwhelmed in the sense she'd never had that before.
Mm-hmm.
She never had someone come up to her and say, yeah, I'll listen to you about whales.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They also tackled her sensitivity.
Sensitivity to what?
hearing. She
Yep.
has sensitive hearing.
Well, so do you.
Yeah, I know. But
I don't have it as much. That's
Yeah.
how I'm able to work in the place that I work.
yeah, but she wears noise canceling headphones. Or
Yep.
I don't think they're noise canceling. I don't know what they're called, but we had them at the daycare center I used to work at, where there's these headphones you can put on. It doesn't block out all noise, but it can block it out enough where it's not overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It's for people who get overstimulated through sound.
Right. So this first episode, I thought it was kind of interesting how the main case ties back to like the flashbacks at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Wasn't that her dad's
Neighbors. It was her neighbors.
I thought it was, for some reason I thought it was his landlord.
Yeah, his landlord, who were
Okay,
also neighbors.
that's what I thought. Yeah,
the landlord and his
landlord.
wife.
Yeah.
The landlord and his wife.
Yeah. Notice how at the very beginning when Woo's father and his landlord get in that fight, she covers her ears and then she just starts shouting facts out loud. This is something that I thought was a little bit different. I have yet to see an example in real life where someone on the autism spectrum, during a moment of high stress, like covers their ears and like shouts facts that they know out loud.
Again,
Almost like
it might be because she's
coping
more,
mechanism.
It might be because she's more mid functioning, and also if her hyperfixation is law, and she was specifically talking about assault, so maybe it was just her way of being able to express. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm. Notice
because she was nonverbal, and if you're nonverbal, you can't express yourself. So this was her first time ever expressing herself.
And when her dad gets her back home, she immediately just gets on the trampoline and starts jumping, like almost as if she has to constantly move.
Yeah,
which makes a lot of sense. Her walk, or even the way she gets up out of a chair, it's like it's very pronounced and very awkward.
She also constantly moves around a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, not just by sitting, she just kind of moves her head, moves her hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely with the hands too. But yeah,
there's the ADHD part of autism.
Yeah, she gets right to jumping on the trampoline and then just starts like shouting the facts out loud again.
Yeah.
When her dad asks her like where she, learned all of that.
Yeah.
I just thought that was kind of funny because it makes a lot of sense to me as someone on the autism spectrum who has to like expel this stress.
Mm-hmm.
They do it through movement. You yourself have been known to do that.
Yeah.
You have to do it. You have an elliptical for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Before you had the elliptical, you would just pace
Yeah.
in the basement, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
back and forth.
Yeah. I think your dad finally just like relented and made sure you got an elliptical or something. I think that was the story.
I think I was able to transition to an elliptical.
Okay.
It's because it's the same type of movement.
I just imagine like your dad like showing you an elliptical and is like, this is what you use from now on.
Well, they had the elliptical before. But I just never had the mind to try the elliptical.
Gotcha. Yeah. As far as like this episode is concerned, like, would there be anything else that you want to?
Well, I mean,
cover?
Let's see. I had something. Hold on a second.
Well, like, as you're thinking about that, I did want to mention that the show is, genre-wise, it is absolutely, like, kind of a Law and Order type, procedural.
A lighter version of Law and Order.
Yeah, a much lighter version of it. Even the twists in it are pretty good.
I remembered.
Yeah.
Wu also talks at a certain level that's above what's socially acceptable.
At least when she was a kid, I felt like she got better when she was an adult.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still monotonous, and she speaks like this all the time.
Yeah, very high, you know, very like high and monotone,
Mm-hmm.
There's
and very fast.
Yeah, there's very little emotion. I should also mention that like, near the end of the episode, the landlord, dies.
Yeah, but as mentioned.
Yeah, as mentioned, and his wife is crying, and Wu, like, feels nothing.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It was a pretty extreme version of an autistic person not being able to empathize with somebody, including death.
I think she was able to empathize a little bit because she didn't like flinch away when the landlady hugged her, and she even was trying but she failed trying to give her a hug. But I think just she just couldn't do it.
That was one little thing I liked in the episode, is that, like, that's the type of development you would do in a typical script, where by the end of the episode, she is able to hug just fine. By the end of the episode, she still isn't able to do it.
No.
You know, like, it happens a second time. She's still not able to do it. Thank you. Thanks for not doing this. You know, thanks for replacing cheap development with realism. You know, I appreciate that, because that is not how autistic people go through character development. They don't go through character development
They
by...
don't suddenly know, oh, I'm okay with this now.
Yeah, they don't go through character development by eliminating, you know, one of the things that makes them autistic in the first place. And I appreciate that.
That just cheapens the autism.
It does, and it inaccurately portrays it as something that can be cured just like that.
Yeah.
You know. So I really liked that, keeping in character.
Oh, there was also her routine. She's very routine based.
Yeah, and did you remember the fact that she has that sheet of all these different facial expressions that tells you?
And they're all her father.
Yeah, and they're all her dad. You know,
with different expressions.
Her dad literally made that for her, which was really nice.
Which is also kind of sad, because you can find that anywhere around here when it comes to...
Oh, really? And her dad just had to make it. Her dad had to make it for her. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
We had an expression sheet at the daycare center I used to work at. I mean, it wasn't as extensive as...
This one was pretty extensive.
It covered, I don't know, at least 20, 25 different expressions.
There's this kind of overt example of symbolism at the very beginning of the episode in the doctor's office.
Yeah, where there's a bunch of rubber ducks.
Bunch of rubber ducks, and then there's the one duck that's blue. It's like, okay, yeah, all right. I see what this is. I reckon I know this.
But yeah, in her morning, she goes through her routine when she gets up, make sure everything is in its proper place. I noticed she has a lot of soft things in her room, which makes sense, because I also like soft things. It's a sensory thing for autistic people. I like buying clothes that are very soft to the touch, because it just feels good to rub and stuff. And then she has a bunch of whale figurines that she has to make sure are in the proper positions. Yeah. And she also eats the exact same thing for breakfast.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Meanwhile, I eat no breakfast right now. I am doing intermittent fasting, which felt terrible this morning. But yeah, and
she also wears very loose clothes. Like, her blouse and her skirts are usually they're not like the thin pinstriped or thin pencil skirts you usually see lawyers wear. It's very flowy and loose. I think it's another sensory thing.
Yeah, but if
she doesn't like being hugged, she probably doesn't like constricting clothes.
Yeah, that's great for show and tell. And the funny thing is, I don't like constricting clothes. Yeah. Now, it's like, I don't like constricting clothes. I don't like feeling trapped by my own shirt. You know, I hate that feeling. Yeah. The problem is that if I wear a looser shirt, I look bigger than I actually am. So it's kind of a struggle.
Going back all the way back.
Okay.
So, would you say that something like Atypical or Extraordinary Attorney Woo portrays autism better? And is it sad that America can't do it right?
Well, I think it's sad that, you know, the best portrayals of people on the autism spectrum in Western shows are ones where they don't even say that they're on the autism spectrum. Well, you know, it's like you look at Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. Oh, yeah. Or, or The Chosen. It's like, of course, in the show, they're never going to say that he's on the autism spectrum. The writers have to say it. The
autism didn't exist back then.
Yeah, like it wasn't called that at all. I think you were just considered weird and socially awkward. And they did such a great job with that. They did such a great job with portraying a character on the autism spectrum without saying... It's like, it's almost like that meme, say you're on the autism spectrum without saying you're on the autism spectrum. I think, in my opinion, that's the best way to portray an autistic character.
Because just, if a character is autistic, usually the autism is their personality. In Western media, that is. In Western media, yeah. Not in real life. Right. So by not saying they're autistic, but showing that they're probably autistic, they're able to build upon and give the character way more personality than just autism. Absolutely. Why do you think American media can't do that right? As in, like, say that a character is autistic, but also give them more personality. I think it's because it's easy to misunderstand autism for the personality. There's a lot of different traits that make up autism.
But you and I, I mean, we're both on the autism spectrum, and we don't refer to each other, that we're autistic every day.
No.
Sometimes I don't even think about the fact that you're on the autism spectrum most days.
No.
There are, there can be like a day every now and then where I'm like, well, that hurt my heart like really badly, but I know that came from a place of autism. So I'll just have to suck it up. Not really. I mean, yes, but no.
Yes, but not that exaggerated.
Right. Yes.
So how is Attorney Wu different?
Again, it's just much more nuanced. It's a lot more subtle in the performance. I mean, it's not subtle that she's autistic.
Right.
In a few cases, like you said, it could even be a little bit exaggerated. But I've seen worse. I know I've seen worse, and it's clear that the writers really did their research, and
they didn't just have a checklist.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if like this actress met with actual autistic people just to kind of figure out her performance. A lot of people who perform as a character on the autism spectrum normally just take whatever research is given to them. They don't really, I've never really heard of people they meet with personally.
Right.
Or they will be taught by people who study autism
but aren't autistic
themselves. That is actually one of the biggest issues with research about the autism spectrum, particularly in the West, is that you get a lot of information about autism from people who are not autistic themselves. They've done their studies, they've done their research, and they probably did a good job at it, because it's one of their life goals is to learn, and that's great. But without connecting with someone who is actually on the autism spectrum and can actually speak from personal experience, you can't really hope to turn in the most authentic performance.
Yeah, I'm sure
or have the most authentic understanding.
I'm sure when you were watching Atypical, you weren't going like, "Oh, that's me."
No, actually, never once.
But when we were watching Extraordinary Attorney, we were like, "Oh, that's me."
Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
I don't think there was a single time in Atypical where the main character reminded me of myself.
Yeah, well, like when
it felt like a stereotype.
Oh yeah, there was another thing when she kept psyching herself up before even talking to people. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me.
Yeah, right. Where she's kind of like, not really, but sort of jumping up and down.
But she also like counts down on her fingers before even talking to someone. Where she's like, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And
what's so cool about that is that she could have either taught that to herself or her father did.
Yeah.
It could go either way.
Yeah.
And also it should be stated too, Wu doesn't care that she's on the autism spectrum.
No.
This is not a struggle where she's not
woe is me.
Yeah, she doesn't feel sorry for herself. She's not struggling over her identity or anything like that. It's just it's a part of who she is. She fully accepts that. And she's completely oblivious of everyone who kind of looks at her the wrong way over it.
Yeah.
I think that's extremely refreshing to me as someone who is very much aware of this part of her or him and just rolls with it.
Yeah.
That's
great.
That's
me.
Yeah, that's great. There's a line, I won't say it since it's in episode 2, but there's a line that really drives that point home, that she doesn't stay up at night, thinking about this.
No. Yeah, that is refreshing.
Yeah, I think it's very refreshing. She mentions it. She mentions that she has autism, but it's more like
explaining to people who may misunderstand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like when she told the jury when she was giving her opening statement, where she was like, just so you understand, I'm on the autism spectrum. So if I speak or act weird, you understand.
Right. I like how she just gives that disclaimer at the beginning. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was really great.
I like that you mentioned how a lot of her traits and how she handles things might have been taught to her by her father.
Yeah.
It's a subtle thing, but now that you mention, like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
And we're not entirely sure how much of it she learned on her own and how much of it her father learned, but it's cool that her father became very motivated to figure it out.
Yeah, he wants what's best for his daughter, like any good parent.
It's a good positive male role model, or a representation of a good great single father, right? Yeah, a good man. I guess we didn't really go into the actual like plot of the episode in terms of like the case and everything, but we're kind of here to talk more about the the nuances surrounding Wu.
Was there anything in the case that really like tied back to the autism?
Not necessarily.
Well, I mean, there was that time where the husband before he died was yelling at Youngwoo and she got overstimulated. And I did like how they visualized overstimulation, where screen edges kind of go white, everything kind of goes monochrome. And
Yeah, that happens at least several times.
Yeah.
Every time that guy was yelling, you know, it happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she got overstimulated. She has sensitive hearing. I feel like that's a really good visualization for how that is, where you just feel, where it's just overwhelming.
Right. I mean, have you seen white edges in your vision? And
no, not like that, but it's visual. It's a visual.
Right.
Visual. I'm not saying like, oh, it's not perfect. It's not the perfect way I feel overstimulated, but I think it's a good way for the producers to visualize what overstimulation feels like for people who aren't autistic.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, again, we didn't really we probably won't get into the actual like case in each episode unless they really tie into, you know, Wu's autism, because I have a feeling, having seen the first 2 episodes, and having time to think of each one, I have a feeling that each episode is going to have something new to say about Wu and, you know, and what it says about the autism spectrum. So that's what we're ultimately here for.
Yeah, the cases are basically this B plot of our podcast.
Yeah, they kind of are. They really are the frosting on the cake of this show, in my opinion. So that being said, overall, I would honestly give this episode like 9.5 out of 10. I really don't even see a reason to not give it a 10 out of 10. Like,
really?
It was just, it was just
a good first episode.
Yeah, great first episode. Didn't really have anything to complain about. K-dramas, they do make a pretty risky move making each of their episodes as long as they do.
I don't know if it's risky. I don't know. I just think that's just how it is in Korea. I don't know how their TV blocks work.
Well, you know, you and I have looked at the lengths of certain like K-drama episodes and gone, oh, oh no.
Well, just for clarification, each episode of Attorney Wu is over an hour long.
Yeah. These aren't short. Even The Glory was like 45 to 50 minutes each.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's because it
was probably one of the reasons why it was easier for me to get through real quickly and easy for me to digest each episode.
Maybe it's because it's a show that was probably on later. Maybe the TV blocks is like an hour in the daytime, but then when she get to nighttime, they get shorter because not many people are awake.
It was definitely a nighttime show because this was a much more adult show. Extraordinary Attorney Wu, at least as far as we've seen, is a pretty family-friendly show. Very just lighthearted and quirky and funny and resonates.
And wants to tell a good message.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So, with that being said, we better go eat before my time is up.
As in his diet, not the fact that he's going to die.
Yes, that's right. Being the fact that I'm doing intermittent fasting right now, I only eat between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m., and it's almost 5. Thank you, paid subscribers, for listening, and we'll see you in the next Extraordinary Attorney Wu review. Bye-bye.
Bye.